this episode of Asians Represent actually has a sponsor. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the amazing folks at Hero Forge. Hero Forge was actually an early sponsor of Asians Represent, and I love Hero Forge. If you don't know what Hero Forge is an easy-to-use design tool that lets you actually build your perfect miniature online using like fully like 3D in-depth character creation tools like right in your browser. You don't need to know how to use something like Blender. You don't need any 3D modeling skills. You just need your imagination, because you could choose from dozens of like character ancestries and thousands of parts to literally bring your character to life. Like I literally went to Hero Forge and I just made Guan Yu in Hero Forge.
There's so many piece options. I've made minis for my entire party, I think last year.
Hero
Forge, so many options.
Hero Forge is awesome. And not only can you just design the character of your dreams in Hero Forge, but they also offer them in a variety of materials, including now color options. So you can download in a variety of plastics, but also bronze, which is really cool. So if you want to be extra and design your D&D character and get it printed in bronze, you can do that with Hero Forge. Or if you have a 3D printer, you can actually download your model files and you can just print it as many times as you want. So this holiday season, you can gift the gift of a custom miniature with Hero Forge. Between today, so November 18th, and the 28th of November, you can get $5 off a physical 3D printed miniature that's basic, premium, and colored plastic alongside bronze by using the coupon code LOOTDROP. And I'll put a link in the chat and our show notes if you folks are interested. This is not combinable with other offers and or promotions, and subject to change and or cancellation without notice. But I absolutely love Hero Forge. They are, they make mini designs really fun and accessible to folks. And, they are actually a really small team based out of like the United States. They're super nice people. So check them out, and thank you for your support, Hero Forge. Now, that said, I had said earlier that our guest today was like one of the OG Asians Represent guests, and I wasn't lying. I had to look back. I looked back at our old feed and stuff, and I was like, look, there was like, when was he like on the show?
It's been a while.
March 30th, 2019 was the last time you, Brother Ming, were on the podcast. And we talked about print and play fan games and the magical girl genre. That was the topic. And I just remember having so much fun doing that episode. And I saw on Twitter, I think like 2 weeks ago, you had posted about an upcoming, like a big Kickstarter campaign that you've got going out for an original game. Because, like I know you as like the master of fan games. Like you are the master of fan games. There's like no question about it. But when I saw you tweeting about, the stress of an upcoming Kickstarter for an original game, I was like, I DM'd you and I was like, yo, are you okay? Can I help you in any way? Not with the design, but like, do you want to just come on the show? And you were just like, hell yeah, let's do this. And now we're here. Now we have a lot more listeners since, 2019. And some of them may have, joined Asians Represent and started listening to us because we're masochists and decided to, read Oriental Adventures live. So some may not know who you are. Who are you, Brother Ming?
Okay, Brother Ming. So I'm a board game designer and now publisher. Like you said, I'm probably most famous, most well known for making these dumb little fan games. Back in, I think, 2017, I made a Fire Emblem fan game that was just based on their mobile game, Fire Emblem Heroes. I took all the characters, put them on cards, gave them all stats and abilities, and you could play them onto a grid and then make them kiss, as all fan games should do. And it was great. I was really happy with it. Because before that, I'd already been designing board games, just for fun, just with my friends. And then I was like, I can't afford to keep spending money on this gacha game, so why don't I just print all the characters out on cards and I can know all of them?
I should have done that with Princess Connect.
I uploaded it to the Fire Emblem Heroes subreddit, and people really liked it, and it was a print and play, and then I put it on the Tabletop Simulator, etc., etc. And then it got picked up by Kotaku, and then that kind of like blew it up. And then people were like, the game is actually solid, which I was like really I was like, whoa, thank you. I didn't, I didn't think anybody would actually like the game. It's a weird feeling. In retrospect, they were all lying. That game sucked. It was garbage, absolute and complete garbage. Uh, some of those guys,
But it
who
had
were
really
fans of
pretty
that,
art. But it had really pretty art.
yeah, I mean, it was a gacha game art. Some of those guys have stuck with me actually all this time, and they will disagree with me. They'll say the game was pretty solid back then, but it was garbage. It was not playable, barely playable in my opinion. But despite all that, that kind of just stuck with me, and then I was like, okay, I'll just keep making games for fun. This is a cute, quirky way to make some games without needing a ton of art skills, and also I can just keep sharing them as free print and plays. Like everybody can just download them, they can print it, they can do whatever they want. At one point, I was even printing them myself and gluing. I got really good at print and plating. I had the cutters, I had the corner cutters.
Well, you said you're into papercraft.
Yeah, I still am. I still do the little paper theater. These are really cool. They're called paper theater box kits.
Oh, I've seen those.
These are super fun. I have a bunch of these, and I made a bunch of these. Yeah, so but yeah, at the time I got really into print and play. I all the tools, spray glue. I like 10 types of glue in my home for different types of paper. I had a bunch of different stock materials. I bought 2 printers to help me print on better materials. So I started offering my print and play. It was like, hey, if you don't want to print and play yourself, I'll assemble it and ship it to you. So I got really into it. And then a couple years later, around 2019, actually when I was talking to you, was when oh wow, I think it was right after we had that podcast. An artist, Soren Midoriyazu Hugs, found not found. He had been a fan of my games, and then he saw that I was working on the Fire Emblem fan game again and kind of like redesigning it because I realized the game was crap, and I was like, I just
now that's Anna's Roundtable.
Yeah, so he found it and tweeted about it. He didn't tag me or anything, and through the magic of Twitter, I saw him tweeting about it, and I was like, whoa, let me reach out. Like DM'd him. I was like, hey, you like the game, you also draw art, do you want to just I can use some of your art instead of using like art from the game. I'll just use some of your art, we can make some like custom cards that way. And he was super down for it. He got really excited. We jumped on Discord together, and then he started like, not just me, I have a bunch of friends who really like this game, let me ask them. And within a week he had dragged together a team of like a dozen artists.
Okay, so this is interesting because you and I are friends on Facebook, and I remember very vividly just seeing this like flood of fucking Fire Emblem content being posted.
The amount of fan art that we got was insane. It was just like this giant floodgate had been opened, where before that moment, because this was after I went on the podcast, because then we became friends on Facebook. Basically during that like 3-month period, I went from somebody who was just making the games into a print play to somebody who all of a sudden knew like 50 artists who were like, I want to draw fan art for your game. And it was just a crazy floodgate. And we got so many submissions. And so that is what then turned into Anna's Roundtable. Like we like brainstormed what to call it. Like he designed like the mascot, our custom Anna, Roundtable Anna, who's, got the like casino vibes, board game vibes, very, very cute. And it was a crazy process. And that's kind of where I'm most well known. I'm the creator of Anna's Roundtable, worker with hundreds of fan artists, and creator of dumb, weird fan games.
I think it's more than that. I don't want you to like reduce your accomplishments and the impact that you have to be like, I just do dumb games. I think what you're doing is like really cool, because
I need to downplay it so that I don't get noticed. That's really what it is.
Oh yeah, sure. These games fucking suck.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Especially Nintendo is like, they're like hardcore too, more hardcore than like others.
You don't mess with Nintendo. You don't mess with the mouse. Those are the two companies you don't mess with when it comes to IP.
Goes and makes a Fire Emblem game.
But Fire Emblem is a weird one. It's like the stepchild that Nintendo refuses to acknowledge, I think.
But it's the only really successful mobile game that they have.
This is true. This is true. But it is still, I think maybe it's because it's mostly operated by intelligent systems. But Fire Emblem is the only game owned by Nintendo that has a super vibrant fan scene, like fan merch scene.
Yeah.
There's a
absolutely.
ton of Fire Emblem fan merch, and there's a ton of Fire Emblem fanzines. And so when Anna's Roundtable first began, it only really happened because there was a huge Fire Emblem fanzine community. Which, for those of you who don't know what a fanzine is, it's basically just a collection of artists who come together for a particular IP or fandom, like Fire Emblem. And so all these artists will come together to draw prints. They will draw merch, like, enamel pins, acrylic charms, standees, to stuff like handkerchiefs, tote bags, washi tape, to even weirder things like socks, coasters, like everything. There's a Fire Emblem
making all their Vogres merch. Everything.
Yeah, exactly. There's a Fire Emblem tea zine where they made Fire Emblem Three Houses inspired tea that came with Fire Emblem or fan art on coasters, and a Fire Emblem teaspoon. I have it. It's gorgeous. And so there's this really, really vibrant fanzine community where all these artists are making Fire Emblem merch. And it hasn't been shut down by Nintendo. It's like the one fandom Nintendo owns. They're just like, whatever.
But do you think that Nintendo's probably like we don't have to worry about them because it's like they're kind of like keeping the fandom alive in a way?
I think so, because Fire Emblem, despite being super big, it feels niche.
It feels very niche, because like you have to be into that kind of game. Mm-hmm. It's a very specific kind of game.
It's the only Nintendo game that's like a hardcore tactics game.
It's a hardcore tactics game, but at the same time, it's like most people, I think, like the wider Nintendo sort of fan base really only know about Fire Emblem because of Smash Bros.
Yeah. The most popular Fire Emblem game is Smash. It's true.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, oh, I love Smash Bros. It's like, oh yeah, Roy and Marth.
I love Ike. Yeah, I love Ike. And they've never played Fire Emblem before.
But never.
It's really weird. Like, so yeah, I think just purely because Nintendo still treats Fire Emblem as this like kind of like this other entity that they own, but it's like, oh, it's one of our more niche IPs. When it's not, Fire Emblem's huge.
It's massive. It's massive. Like, actually, it's really funny. I have a Chrom figure I have the same IKEA glass shelf as you. Next to my desk, I've got a Chrom figure. I love Fire Emblem Awakening. And I'm actually replaying the first Fire Emblem game that came to Game Boy Advance right now on my phone. Totally legally.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely.
Totally this podcast is brought to you by Hero Forge, not Nintendo. So we're good there. But yeah, you know what? I love seeing your passion for fan games, right? Because it really like brings the community together. It really brings the community together.
It's crazy.
It's an exercise in like large scale collaboration, right? It's an exercise in like game design from the shadows, but it's also been like prepping you for React, which we're going to talk about today.
Now, it's taught me all the lessons I need to learn to be a publisher, basically.
Exactly, right? It's really funny, and this is completely unrelated, but I had to say it. When I was like prepping for this and like, go through your socials and your website just to make sure all was good, my girlfriend like literally looks over my shoulder and I'm on your website because you have that your avatar of yourself. And
I
fucking hate this. My girlfriend's like, "Oh, did you copy his hair? You copy his hair?" My girlfriend, my girlfriend fucking thinks that I'm like a Brother Ming fanboy because of the way I used to have my hair. And I was like, first of all, like
That's like the most Asian hairstyle 101.
First of all, like I committed to also with the color, like I committed to the full color, and then later on it became like Brother Ming's. So no, but also I am a fanboy of Brother Ming's. I think you're great. Now, before we dive further into sort of fan projects and board game design, I do want to clarify something with the audience. Prior to actually starting the recording, we both were like, oh yeah, people probably don't understand like where the Brother Ming moniker comes from.
Yeah.
And I actually had a really interesting interaction. The timing was funny actually at work. I'm gonna get my camera to refocus on me. Oh well, it'll come back. But anyways, I had a really interesting conversation at work with one of my coworkers, and she had like just gotten off a call with a client, and she was like, Daniel, I think this like client's in a cult because he insisted come on, camera. He insisted on having all of his employees call him brother something. And I was like, like my coworker is like white. And I was
There is
like,
that religion's way to say.
yeah. So I was like, well, there could be a
priest's
couple of
brothers.
reasons for this. And the timing was perfect because you had just agreed to come on the podcast again to do this. So I was like, it could be a couple different things. It could be religious. It could be, are they Asian? Because, in Chinese culture, you got your aunts, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters. Like, it's a really common thing. And so I went down this like whole Slack thread explaining like all these examples of different reasons why somebody might want to have other people in their business call them brother or sister before this could potentially be a cult. I'm like, yeah, you know what? It could totally also be a cult.
It might be.
It might also be a cult. But
do they host a really, eccentric Chinese dance show across the country once a year?
Oh my God. And so I was like, let's not even go into that because we don't want those people coming after us. I don't want those people coming after us. It's about that time of year too when we're starting to see those ads on the side.
Oh yeah. They're everywhere. Everywhere.
I'm no shade to Shenyang.
No shade.
Like,
no shade.
I'm just putting it out there. Shenyang person listening to Asian Represent. No shade. No shade.
Okay, actually, quick. Have you been to any of those shows before?
I have not.
I actually went to one.
Oh,
it's actually really impressive. They're actually incredibly gorgeous.
It looks very impressive, but
Yeah.
but like the thing is, what you know about what they are.
Yeah, just close your eyes during those two weird acts, and then the rest you're like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool."
And it's just like go and play like Genshin on your phone or something.
Yeah.
But like for you, the brother and brother Ming
Mhm.
is a cultural thing.
Yeah. It was it's Mingge because I'm like when I started getting into the fan games, I had aged out, I think, out of the fandom. I just turned 30 this year, so I'm like, my hairline's receding. I'm getting my back's always hurting.
I'm old. You're like, oh, I'm old. I'm older than you.
I know you are. Not by much. But it was just funny because like so many of the artists are pretty young. They're like, mostly early 20s. Soren, the lead artist for Andrew Roundtable, who did all the he did all the cover art and stuff. I think he's only 20. Wow, is he 25 now? When I met him, he was like 23. So he might be 26 now. I don't know. Actually, I should ask. So yeah, like I was just like, okay, it's pretty common for people in Chinese to call me Mingge, Mingge, which just means brother Ming, but Ge specifically means older brother. And so that just became a moniker because that's just what you call somebody who you're close with, but is a little bit older than you. And if they're a lot older than you, then you call them Uncle Ming. Like, and now the joke is I am now Uncle Ming because
you're gonna have an entire line of games. There's Uncle Ming games, then you have
yeah
games, different audiences.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like to me, it's like when I'm like, oh, Brother Ming, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I totally get it. But there's that added layer, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, of the entire process of making these fan games that kind of really goes well with the whole Brother Ming thing. Because this isn't just for like family, it's for like people who are like close to you. It's like your neighbors, like that sort of thing. But, hearing about the process of like, making the not Fire Emblem games, it's like it makes a lot of sense to me when I think about it. It's like you are like the older brother to all these artists who are kind of contributing to the project.
Yeah, it's wild. There are a couple artists who are my age or older. The lead artist for Genshin Taro is my age, Daniel Deng. He's also Chinese, and they're working with a lot of Asians. I think we just end up attracting each other for one reason or another.
Look, it's how it works. Even at like cons too, right? You see like Asian people, and you're just like, oh, who
it was like, hey, what's up? Yeah, should I know you? Do I know you? Do I already know you?
Literally at D&D Live 2019, so like months after we had met, it was like one of like the whitest events ever, and I show up, and then somehow all the Asian people just congregated, and for some reason every single one of them was an Asian Represent listener.
There you go.
And didn't know
You're a
who.
beacon of our community, to be entirely honest.
But it was like we just kind of gather. Like my first Gen Con, I remember going, and every time I saw an Asian person, I was like, "What's up? What's up?" Because there's so few. There's so few
Yeah.
Asian people. And it's like I was like, I feel like we should be friends.
Yeah.
I feel like we should get to know each other. But it's also like when one of us wins, we all win.
Yeah.
Like
When I met the feast feast of dim sum, Hot Banana, they make the feast up. That's the name of the game.
Feast
Steam
Up.
up. Steam up.
Steam Up. Oh,
That's
with the little with the
yeah,
trays. Oh,
I met them
cutest game.
at Gen Con, and they were like, "Oh yeah." I had been following their work, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm excited to get my copy." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we had already kind of known about Brother Ming," and I was like, "Oh great, let's get food."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's like eventually the Asian population in the board game industry is pretty small, which is, I'm not complaining too much. There's definitely even less represented groups, but
Yeah.
it is small enough where we'll have heard of each other one way or another. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and the
pretty-
thing is, like, you help each other out,
Yeah,
you boost
yeah.
each other, and you make sure everybody gets their wins, right?
My Kickstarter page is basically filled with quotes and previews from mostly Asians. Like I like commissioned Shelfside to do our preview review video. I have Watch It Played and Stella from Meeple University do the
Oh,
How to
that's
Play
sick.
video.
I mean, I'm
And all
gonna
the
back
quotes.
it. I can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
gonna back it. I typically don't like to back a lot of Kickstarters because I don't like to wait.
Oh, you gotta back mine. I have
But
no
I gotta
idea if
back
it's gonna
yours.
exist.
I
It
gotta
might not
back yours.
exist.
No, I gotta back yours. I gotta back yours. I'm really excited about React. I'm also super excited because we had your website open for a really long time because I was like, do I buy this? Do I buy this? I want to know about Genshin Tarot. I gotta know about it.
Oh, we're so close. I just got the proof for the physical art book from my manufacturer. It's gonna ship by March. I'm like very confident we'll ship. I'm very confident it's gonna arrive to me before Chinese New Year. So you can buy it once it's in stock. It'll ship immediately. That'll be even
Okay,
better.
awesome. Can you tell me about it though? I'm super
Yeah,
curious because
yeah.
like I know you like
have a program here.
Fire Emblem was like your thing, and I know you're a Genshin fan. Like I literally see the little venti. I see the little figures behind you, but like I want to know like
I have some of these.
I want to know like there's Barbara, and that's Fish, but like I want to
Official.
know like what is the game because
So,
it's
Genshin
interesting
Tarot.
because it's an Asian game combined with tarot, which is like European,
Well,
or is it tarot
anime
more of like
the anime
aesthetic sense?
fandom. The anime fandom loves to use tarot and slap it on anything.
Card captors.
Yeah. For no reason, and that's kind of the anime aesthetic we've adopted. Because
Okay.
why not? It's
I mean-
in everything. It's in Cyberpunk for some reason. It's in
Okay, that
Persona,
makes a lot of
love it.
sense. Because did you see those Full Metal Alchemist tarot cards? That
Oh,
limited-
I know exactly which set you're talking about.
I
there's a very
really
first set.
regret not buying it, and now
There's a couple of really pretty Fire Emblem Tarot fan projects actually. Three Houses Tarot was huge. I think they sold like 5,000 copies.
I haven't played it yet. I haven't played Three Houses yet.
There's a 3 house. I think it's literally called 3H Tarot on Twitter. They're one of the bigger fanzine projects, and they like sold thousands of copies of Tarot deck. It's gorgeous, gold foil and everything. But yeah, this game, Genshin Tarot.
Yeah, so I want to
is-
know about it. So
Yeah, it has the tarot element in the idea of like, well, we want the players to, have the feeling of playing Genshin. It's a cooperative game. Each player will create a team of 4 characters, and essentially, deck build their way through a waves upon waves of enemies until they fight off one of the bosses. There's a couple bosses in the box.
like the world bosses, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for example, we have Dvalin right here. He's one of the bosses.
Oh, that's so cool.
We have Dvalin, we have the wolf, and
Oh, yeah.
and then we have Lechonk, the chonky frog, big angry froggo boy.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh yeah, Aztahai is he's a world boss in Liyue, so you'll get him very soon. But the tarot part is really just at the beginning of the game. You divine your team. You don't get to just assemble it, because otherwise, I think people would probably spend way too long putting together a team. It would take like,
Oh, so it's like
hours and
the
hours.
wish system.
exactly. You just get randomly dealt a team of 5 characters, and you choose 4 of them. And that's kind of where the tarot part comes in.
And then
and
you
use
have
the
like
tarot
all the
cards for that.
elemental stuff in there as well as a
Oh
part
yeah,
of
the
it.
gameplay itself is essentially it's Slay the Spire gameplay with Genshin theme on it. The gameplay itself is very much so Slay the Spire inspired. It's just a deck builder.
That's awesome.
Uh, yeah, but the systems wise is you can either deal damage or you can apply elements. There's no statuses. You don't apply statuses to enemy. You
Right.
apply elements, and every 2 elements triggers something.
That's really
Reaction.
cool. I've recently got back into that sort of like deck building, sort of like deck building games. I started playing this one on Steam called Across the Obelisk, and I
Oh.
feel like it takes Slay the Spire to that like next level. It's very similar to like kind of what you're describing in that you have a party of characters and you like level them up and you build decks for each one of them. And then you go through like an entire story and there are side quests and the gameplay is very much exactly like Slay the Spire. And it's not what I was expecting for Genshin Terra, and I'm like kind of here for it.
Oh yeah, the gameplay itself is. I actually have some of the tarot.
Yeah,
cards
I looked at all of the stuff on the website.
you just divine a team of 4 characters. I think that because like there's almost 40 characters from the get go. If you told somebody to be like, pick your team of 4 from this 40 cast, it would take forever. It would also
or
not
like
be fun.
or like they would just pick the characters they're currently playing in the game.
The fun of this game and what makes it super replayable, and the people who are really liking it love it because the random set of characters you get dealt and figuring out how to make that deck work is what makes this game fun.
So
game,
that's gonna come out in March.
It's gonna ship very soon. And the cards themselves look like this, exactly like Slay the Spire. They're all just action cards. They have text on the bottom that tells you what they do when you play them, and then at the very top corner, how many action points they cost.
And this is all just like this is all custom art. This isn't any
game
art.
So when with the dawn of Anna's Roundtable having become friends with hundreds of artists, this project basically was it's 100% original art.
That's awesome.
And here's the cool thing: where with Nintendo, we were always kind of living on the edge, living life a little bit dangerously.
Right.
With Genshin, we're not. Genshin Impact, owned by MiHoYo, it is one of the most fan-friendly companies I have ever seen exist.
You're just uplifting their brand.
Right.
Free marketing for them.
They are so fan merch positive. I've never seen a company more fandom positive than perhaps Hades. Hades was really fan merch positive. Yeah. But like they're small, right? But like Genshin is like huge. Massive. They are pretty much they have like a public term of service agreement to like guideline for how you can create fan merch, and it's super loose. It's essentially just like if you're not selling it in mass retail on Amazon, we don't care.
Yeah.
Oh, and also no figurines. That's it. They're like you cannot make anime figurines. Outside of that, anything's free game.
I think a lot of companies though really draw the line at figurines though.
Well, they have to, because they're actually gonna make them.
Yeah,
so they don't want to.
And they are like very high quality representations of these characters.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool because you see a lot of because obviously like when we first met, you weren't on Etsy, but now you are. So naturally, I go to your Etsy store to see what you got, and then I go down the absolute rabbit hole of looking at Genshin stuff. I also like
there's so much Genshin merch on Etsy.
My partner was like, "Oh, you need to drink more water." Literally, my partner's white, and literally like I'm at work, like I work from home, and she's upstairs, and she looks down at me, and I look at him, she's like, "Daniel, I'm sorry, right now," and I'm just like, "Oh god, okay." And something like hydrating enough, so she like bought me this like Nalgene bottle, and like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put stickers all over it. So I put like a Snorlax on it, like I got Turning Red, I got Anya from Spy Family. I have some Wotakoi ones coming in the mail, but I've been looking for Genshin stickers.
Oh yeah, I'm a big sticker bomb guy. This is my laptop.
Oh yeah,
right now. I actually filled up my previous laptop case, and I retired it. I popped the case off and I put it on my wall, and I started with a clean case.
Oh, so that's super cool.
New stickers on it.
I want to make stickers when and not to make things super heavy, like our cat died, in when we said goodbye to our cat in August, to help my partner, I commissioned an artist
Oh, that's adorable.
to draw 8 little cartoons of our cat as like holding
Oh,
pizza with a sword, like just like cute little like classes for our cat. And I've had these files, and my intention was actually to get them made. She's in the shower, so she can't hear this. My intention, and she doesn't watch the podcast. And my intention was to get them made into like stickers and like charms, so that she'd like have reminders. And so I've been like doing some research into like Vogue Race, because Vogue Race
oh,
seems to
I
be
can help you exactly how to do it.
it seems to
It's
be
super
like the one
straightforward.
service that lets you do small batch.
Vogue Race is great for small batch. They're also really expensive, but for personal use, they're the way to go. Vogue Race
Yeah,
is
for
the
personal use.
Juno is also pretty good. If you've looked into them,
I might
both of
ask
them
you about stickers and charms, because I'm thinking about Asians rep stuff. So I might
nice.
ask you
If
about
you ever
that.
need merch made, like I've done so much merch. And like, here's the thing: the one high level advice, anybody listening, if you're ever gonna make any charms or stickers, uh, for sale, if you're gonna make it for sale
Mm,
and not for personal use, don't use Vogue Race or Juno. Don't do it. They're super expensive.
yeah.
They're essentially middlemen. And they're just middlemen who are really good at English with really good customer service and a very very pretty website that is hassle free. You can just upload directly to it, and the website tells you everything. It's like it makes it really hands off for you to use them. But if you're actually making like if you're making like 500 stickers to sell, just go to Alibaba. Like just talk to the
Oh yeah,
manufacturers directly. The cost difference is not even like close. Like I made those acrylic standees. Let's see if
yeah.
I
The
can grab
Genshin
one.
ones. You have
Yeah, these are actually
the
here.
child one, right?
If you are a Final Fantasy 14 fan, this is actually a sneak preview. I have not posted this anywhere. Anywhere.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. Just for
There
Asians
are
represent.
I get it. I get
These
I get
are
so
these
much
are got
flack for not
I
playing
got
Final Fantasy 14.
I know. I got a quote from Juno for them to make 500, and it was $15 each. But like a regular manufacturer is like $3 each. Like, and I knew Juno was going to be expensive. I literally just went out of my way to prove a point to my friend, and I was like, "Let
Right.
me show you why you shouldn't use them. It's ridiculously expensive. The markup is huge."
So you get you have the art, you get the art done, you go to your manufacturer, and then you
Yes,
just
yeah.
take care of
You
it.
just
That's
do it. Just
awesome.
go directly to the manufacturer. There's so many of them. And Alibaba is basically the Amazon of manufacturing. Every manufacturer has their own profile. They're all very competitive because they have to be. There's so many of them. And
Right. And
Juno essentially is just a middleman. That's
has
all.
shipping stabilized from like China to North America now? Because
Well, for
before,
small batch merch like this, it's gonna be air shipping either way.
so no
Like they're just gonna
problems.
ship it. Like it was basically not affected. The shipping crisis was mostly affecting like actual shipping. Like a whole box of charms is still one box. Like
Shipping
500 charms
containers.
is
We're talking like
right.
containers.
Yeah, like when I shipped Anna's Roundtable from China to America, I paid 20 grand.
I saw your
I
tweet.
was so mad.
You were like I paid 20 grand, and then now it's like 3 to 7 grand or
Yeah,
something.
it's so cheap now. It tanked. It like nosedived over the last month, and I'm like, what? I mean, at the time, everybody was like, "Who knows if it's ever going to come down?" And I was convinced it probably would never. And I wasn't going to wait like another 9 months before I
Yeah,
shipped it out to my customers. That was not going to happen. But yeah, I basically hit the peak. Like when Anderson Roundtable finished manufacturing, Fright was at an all time high, and I was like, "Oh, this is so painful." I was in the red for quite a while with that project because of the Fright. Because when I first started it and I collect
Yeah.
the shipping and everybody paid. Estimate for Fright for a container was $4,000.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then when it was finished, it
let's
was like
add
20
16 grand to this.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, this sucks. This hurts so much. But now it's back to normal, thank God. So I think board gaming as a whole is probably gonna do a lot better because Fright prices are better.
Yeah. So you speaking of like board gaming, right? One of the things you mentioned was like components, because I want to know about board game design. Not even just from like, oh, I want to like make charms and stickers or acrylic standees or whatnot, but in terms of just designing a board game, I want to talk about this because for me, when I think about a like board game design, there are so many more working parts than designing an RPG. Like I've been a part of like I've worked on big RPG projects. I've done solo stuff. I've worked with small teams. I've self-published print. I've done digital, and all of it has been like really streamlined, really easy because for the most part, it's just all about the text. Yes, there's like getting like art done. If you can't do the layout, there's layout. But when I think about board games,
Have
I
you
get
done? Did you do the layouting before for yourself?
yeah. So
Yeah.
all of my indie releases, I do all of my layout.
What
With the
was the I remember you. I remember checking out one of the ones you made. It wasn't Band of Brothers, but
Oh,
I just
the Ross Rifles, the World War One game.
yeah,
I did not do that one. I did not do the layout for that one. That one was very professionally done.
yeah. I remember like that one looked super good. I was about to vet. I was like, "Dang, you're pretty good at graphic design." Okay.
Also, I'll mail you a copy of the book. I'll mail you a copy.
Damn.
DM me your
I'll
address
have to
later.
trade
I
you.
got like a lot of extra copies. I'll DM you a copy.
I'll
I'll
have to
mail you
trade
a
you.
copy.
I'll trade you some Genshin merch.
Deal. Deal. I'll send you some stuff. Yeah, send me your address after. I'll mail it to you. But yeah, no, we had a buddy of ours, Will Parks. He did the graphic design for it. We actually found like an artist on like Instagram who did some of the interior art. But we also had the luxury of having all of the World War One photos being in the public domain. Right, because everything's in the public domain.
Yeah, it was a lot of photos. Yeah.
So
yeah.
we didn't have to like
smart.
we had a professional cartographer do the map, like the battlefield maps, and like our cartographer was like any award-winning cartographer Mark Richardson, who is a cartographer for the Canadian government, and he used professional map making tools to make the battlefield maps for World War One. But for the most part, all of our art assets were in the public domain, which we really lucked out with.
That's cool. I can't wait for a Winnie the Pooh board game. Now that Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there isn't already one on Kickstarter.
Another great World War One story. Because Winnie the Pooh comes from World War One.
Wait, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, what? Winnie the Pooh was like a bear in the London Zoo. It has to deal with World War One. Same with like Lord of the Rings. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that either. What?
J.R.R. Tolkien fought in World War One. He was like he fought in the Battle of the Somme. And it's a really tragic story. Like he fought in the Battle of the Somme. He was wounded in World War One, and he had all these friends go with him to war, and all his friends fucking died.
Oh shit!
Like he like had like survivor's guilt, and a part of his inspiration for like the Fellowship of the Ring was from his experiences in war, in like real.
That's
war.
Actually super. I never knew that.
Yeah,
I've never read. Like I wasn't really into like Lord of the Rings or anything, but I know what it is. Obviously.
I think World War One was like a really interesting conflict because it's very different from war now, right? It's like dudes living in trenches, like eating rats, like their feet are rotting off. They're like just waiting to die. And then there's like dudes who are like a couple of kilometers away from you who are chilling with the enemy because nobody wants to fight. It was like a really strange war. And it wasn't until recently that people are actually kind of really thinking about how World War One was actually fought out. Like I know on Netflix, All Quiet on the Western Front just came out on Netflix. Like
I've seen clips of that on YouTube Shorts.
It's like super realistic, right? There's like the movie 1917, another like really sort of like depressing look at the war. And then there's like one of the greatest World War One movies ever made, Wonder Woman. Like the first Wonder Woman movie is a World War One movie. Like there's literally a scene where she's fighting in the trenches in no man's land of World War One, and it's fucking epic. But a lot of people don't think about that.
She rushes through with
her shield, and it's so
and
cool.
Her completely unguarded knees and shins.
Yeah, and then there was the Kingsman movie, The King's Man. I think the latest one, the prequel, is a World War One film as well.
I didn't watch that. I love the Kingsman series.
I thought it was pretty good. There was a really good trench warfare scene. I thought it was awesome. But that's like a tangent for us. Like making Ross Rifles was really easy because it was like we work in Microsoft Word, right? Work in Microsoft Word. We do everything there. We had an editor. Our biggest expense was actually travel. Was really travel. Was like because we wanted to make sure we got all the historical details correct, and we went to like our nation's capital, Ottawa, and spent like a weekend in their armory handling all the guns and all the artifacts to make sure we got it right. But designing an RPG was really easy because we didn't have major art expenses.
I wouldn't
publishing.
call it easy. I
It
wouldn't
wasn't
call it
easy.
easy.
It
It's
wasn't
still
easy.
very,
Like
yeah.
it's still very challenging, but like
Yeah.
financially, I will say
Very
financially, it was
different,
easy.
very different.
Yeah,
I mean, travel cost for historical accuracy is a cost that most board games would never even think of. So, like, it's just a
true.
totally different game. Yeah.
But like for
Uh,
us, when we went to do like the fulfillment of like our Kickstarter,
mhm.
we actually happened to come across like a printer in our city who had a lot of experience also fulfilling Kickstarters.
Mm.
And
Printing and shipping books is probably much
it
easier than
and it
board
was
games.
much
So
easier, but
that
like
part I won't give it to you.
but the thought of and like this happened just
Mhm.
before the pandemic, so we got locked in on a price and
Ah,
everything. So when the pandemic happened, we got literally August of 2020, all of our books were delivered. Um, but most of our buyers were in North America. Now, the thing about a board game is honestly like terrifying because you think about like, hey, I've got to not only do you have to play test it, but I also have to think about art because let's be honest, like art sells TTRPGs and board games. Like
yeah.
art is a
Yes.
very, very, very important component of it.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
one of those people where if I look and I see the art and the game is not reflective of at all, I got really annoyed. Like,
React is pretty expensive on art, and Genshin Taro too. Genshin Taro, like, we paid, I want to say, just over 20 grand for art
yeah,
for
but
Genshin
the
Taro.
art is
Yeah.
beautiful, right? So you got art, then you have to actually manufacture the components, and then there's another thing that like terrifies me from like a logistical perspective in terms of like how much it would cost is like because I see you've got a ton of tokens, like all of your tokens and like the cutouts for the tokens, and
Punch
then
boards are not that bad. Punch boards are not that bad.
and then oh, punch boards, that's the word, and then
Yeah.
manufacturing the box, the packaging as well.
Nice.
Oh, look at that,
Those are
Electro.
nice. You can apply elements. It's gonna be good.
But it's like, but that's not something you have to think about in TTRPGs unless you're doing like a box set. Like I
Yeah.
know Free League does a lot of box sets, and you know I kickstarted Twilight 2000, and that was a really weird one to receive because when I got it in the mail, Russia invaded Ukraine.
When you do the box sets, the dice makes money. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah, but then aren't
People love buying
dice? I
dice.
guess yeah, people love dice, but like I want to know like about board games. Like what are the differences between like making a board game and like making a tabletop RPG? Because I know that board games can be far more lucrative than tabletop RPGs. I mean, not can be, they are far more lucrative than tabletop RPGs if you get a hit.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
and
all about scale though. I think board games and tabletop RPGs same things. Like the margins is probably I don't think the margins is great either way.
mm,
I think at a lower end, tabletop RPGs have better margins.
yeah,
Because you can print 50 to 100 books and the
no
prices
problem.
aren't too bad. And you can sell them for $50 a book if you have like a dedicated audience. Whereas board games is like you could never do that. Like minimum requirement is like 1,000 copies. Like if you print anything less than 1,000, what are you doing? You're not gonna make any money. So but once you scale up really high, I think board games definitely become a lot more lucrative for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I would say the main difference is just it's you have to think about packaging a lot more with board games. Not that all publishers do that. I think a large majority of publishers do not give a damn about packaging. They just throw everything in a box and ship it to you,
There
which
is
I
a
I hate. I hate so
one of my
much.
favorite board games, Blood Rage, has
Mm.
incredible packaging. Everything fits so well into that box.
I
You
love
could tell
that.
it was just like optimally designed. The way
Yeah,
the
I
minis are
love
stacked, everything
packaging.
fits so well in the packaging. You could tell that they thought very hard about what is the smallest we could possibly make this box. But
Yeah,
that is something that's very scary to me in
I was very proud of Anna's Roundtable specifically because the packaging, the way we designed it, or I designed it. So after you take the box lid off, obviously, there's
yeah.
this tray on the top, and the tray fits our game boards and the rule book. Uh,
Oh,
so
so that clear plastic?
yeah, so there's a lid tray that has
Oh,
divot
that's
for the rule
smart.
book, and then you can
Is
figure
it
out the rule book, and then all the game boards are right here.
That's very cool.
I was really, really proud of this solution.
So how does one design something like that? Like what sort of
I just drew it out on paper. I drew it
so
with
it's just like
pencil.
literally
Yeah,
draw it
I
on
drew it
paper,
out,
and then
and then I
you
sent it to my manufacturer. They made the 3D model, and then like we went back and forth because inserts like these, and then this insert, I'm very, very proud of.
oh, that's
We
really
have
cool.
spaces for all our custom shapes of meeples, enough space for all the cards. This actually is 2 games worth of cards because I brought this to a tournament
Right.
to host a tournament to play. So one box is enough for like four players. Everything has their own space. My favorite little detail is this little divot right here, where I don't have all the stuff in it because I gutted this game. I gutted this box for the tournament.
And
But
there's an
anyways,
entire secondary market for laser cut
yeah. So that's the
containers
thing.
for that stuff
I
too.
hate having to buy
You shouldn't
a
have to.
extra insert. Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have to. Like the board game, because like the plastic insert isn't that expensive. It is the mold cost is an upfront cost, usually somewhere between 150 to 500, depending on the materials and how many molds you have. So there is that upfront cost, but it's not that much. It's not that much. Come on,
So
publishers.
so kind of
Just
what
eat it.
what I'm hearing is that like the biggest difference between like making a board game, obviously like mechanically there are huge differences in how you kind of like the player experience for a board game and a tabletop RPG. But the biggest thing that I'm hearing here is that a critical component of making and publishing successfully a board game is having a very, very strong connection with the manufacturer.
Oh, that part for sure. I think that's you're right. I think manufacturing can be a little bit easier for books because there's so many
You just go to a publisher. There's so many of
manufacturers.
them
So
out
many
there.
of
You can
them.
even do
Yeah.
it through Amazon.
Yeah, there's so many book printing has been around. It's very robust, but for board games, most of your manufacturers aren't even a one-stop shop. Like most manufacturers still has to outsource some of the things that you make to them. For example,
Like you're
if
gonna
you
get folks who will like make the meeples, folks who do the
exactly,
cards, the dice, and then they send it to one person, and then that person assembles
yeah.
everything, right?
For example, these meeples, like my
Oh yeah.
manufacturer is a pretty big manufacturing company. They have and they work with like 3 or 4 large plants, basic factories to do the
Mm.
cards and all the basic stuff. But like if you wanted something that's more specific, like a cloth mat or custom shaped meeples, they still outsource that. They're not like it's not like a single one house does everything, right? So you have to be really close to the manufacturer for sure.
So
And me and
so
my
I
manufacturer for this project got really close. We became such close friends. We started sharing like texting each other like air fryer recipes and
I
she's
love air
great.
frying.
She even sent me photos of her wedding, and I sent her photos of my wedding as well. It's great. Like, yeah, I think I have an advantage. I think that's not super normal. I will be upfront about that. I think
Everybody be
most
prepared to
publishers,
share recipes. That's the advice
I
here.
think most publishers don't have a very close relationship with their manufacturing rep. I
So
think I am lucky because I speak Chinese, and like we just got really close.
I was gonna say, so like you're going to want a manufacturer in China.
Yeah. It's basically unavoidable. I don't. There are a couple of board game manufacturers in America, but they mostly focus on doing on-demand printing and mostly catering to designers and publishers for prototypes. And
Right.
there's a couple of plants now in Europe and a couple of plants in Vietnam. But for the most part, right now, the industry is still heavily reliant on Chinese manufacturing, just because
Right.
they're very robust. They're robust. They've done it for so many years. They can do it very quickly, a lot
And
more
the
cheaper
cost.
with higher quality than American manufacturers. American manufacturers, plainly speaking, just aren't the quality's not there. Like it's just the
Right.
quality's not even there right now.
That makes sense.
Uh,
So I guess when thinking about a board game design project, if you're like, okay, I want to make a board game, I want to make honestly, board game design scares me because I know that it's a long haul. In my mind,
yes.
it's more of a long haul than RPG design. Because with RPG design, you can just go and digitally release it and be done with it and just keep iterating on it
Mm.
and keep releasing updates. With a board game, it's like once it's out, you don't really get a chance to kind of recover from that.
That is 100% the case.
Like
I
when
mean,
when I hear, and this is like, look, this is
yeah.
like no shade to people who work at that company, But when I'm on Facebook and I see ads for Elden Ring the board game, and the majority of the emojis on that are a laugh emoji, I'm like, yeah, because it's Steamforged Games. They make really pretty assets, but their gameplay, their reputation for gameplay really sucks because of what they
Yeah,
did with Dark Souls.
nobody's buying that game to play it. Let's be honest.
No, everybody's gonna buy that game for the minis and then use it for something else.
Oh man, I'm so mad at how. Did you see their press event where they had like that closed door press event? Where
Yeah,
they
you had
showed-
to like it. Just
What is this?
Yeah, it's pretentious, but also their model for that game to get a full Elden Ring game experience, it's gonna cost you like $1,000. This
Yeah,
game is
it's
gonna be
absurd.
more expensive than Kingdom Death.
The idea that like they're so aware that the gameplay is bad that they won't let people play it without some sort of supervision
This is
is to me hilarious.
this is literally what happens in video games. This is the review embargo
yeah,
in video
they're-
games.
They're like, you can only play it with one of our teammates closely supervising and teaching. Because obviously, if you play a game and the person who knows everything about it is right there helping you, can
steer
have a
you
much
away
better-
from
yeah.
things that are weird.
There's a-
Yeah.
It's a much better experience. But it's just like it's so obvious that they're not even confident in their own the gameplay. They're
Well,
just
just-
there for people to show up, take pictures of the minis, and then leave. That's
Well,
just-
yeah, it's just like you're selling just based on like the brand identity alone, not the gameplay experience.
And that's gonna sell. It's gonna sell.
Oh, of
It's gonna
course.
sell.
No doubt. And they know that too. So, like, we're never getting a sponsorship.
I'm
from them
probably
now.
gonna buy it. I'm not. I hate it so much, but I love Elden Ring, and the minis.
I
look really
do.
good.
I love Elden Ring. I'm like one of those filthy like holy players.
Oh my god.
Oh god, yeah.
I mean, I
Like,
backed Darkest Dungeon. I hate that board game. That
Yo,
board game
that-
sucks.
didn't they got financially like
And and it
Ruined by
was just
that
turned into a giant mess. But like, even when it was on Kickstarter, I posted this giant rant about how crappy this game looked. Because I watched the whole playthrough with Becca Scott, and
Yeah.
I was like, this is a garbage board game.
you
I
want
was
to
so mad.
you want to know what like in terms of like board games, I don't want something super complex. Actually, my partner was looking to see like what kind of board game she wants to start playing more board games. Like all she wants to do is play Blood Rage, but like we also don't want to be around lots of people because we're like, I don't want to go outside, right? So we're like, okay, 2-player board games. What do we got? I'm like, Hero Quest. We can get Hero Quest. That's like it's a very light dungeon crawly, very it's a time capsule of a game. There's like Descent.
Old
'cause
school.
There's like we could. And she was like, "Oh, what about Gloomhaven?" I'm like, "We'll play the video game."
Yeah, just
video game.
play
We'll play the video
Gloomhaven
game.
is better as a video game.
We'll play
It
the
wanted
video
to be a video game in the first place.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The one that I think about especially when I think of design, in terms of like elegance and in terms of like foresight and in terms of like aesthetics meets gameplay, is photosynthesis.
I've
I
not
love
played
that.
it. I've
It is
seen The
literally
pictures
just
are
about
really nice.
growing trees and then the sun moves around.
It's a very
and-
aesthetic game.
It's very aesthetic game. I remember going to Queen City Conquest in like 2017, and I played that game 6 times. And they're
Oh,
like, they had
man.
this board game library, and I played it like 6 times, and I loved it. But the point I'm trying to make is like, it has very simple components. When I think about, I played Twilight Imperium like on Tabletop Simulator with some folks, and like, cool game, but I would never choose to play that game because there's just so much shit. But also like the thought of manufacturing it is also explains why it costs so much money, right? They have all these little minis, they have little cards, tokens, dice. And now that I'm understanding,
It's very bloated. It's very bloated.
now that I'm understanding that all these components cannot be made by one single manufacturer, I get it. So I think what I'm trying to say is like, if you're getting into board games and you want to design your own board game, I feel like at the very beginning of your project, when you're ideating on what this is going to be, you have to know what kind of components you want from the very beginning.
Actually, yeah, you have to think about what kind of components you're using for your board game very, very early on.
Like-
That is something I think a lot of board game designers realize that pretty early on too, because as they play board games, they realize, oh, how many meeples do I need? And you don't
Yeah.
realize how expensive things can become. And board games right now has basically like a 5 to 10x markup in order to be financially viable. So like if you sell a board game that's $50, it needs to be produced under $10. Like that's not a lot of money to work with.
No, and then you also have to produce it in like high enough quantities to also
Yeah.
get to that point too.
And surprisingly, actually, minis is actually on the cheaper end. Minis are also Arkham Horror LCG is a good game. Just seeing
I've heard
that
very good
comments.
things about it.
Yeah. But yeah, minis are actually cheaper components. The thing that's really expensive about minis is the mold. The mold is very expensive, several $1,000s for a mold.
That makes total sense because you're gonna have to get somebody to sculpt like a master.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the sculptor fee. Yeah, the artist, you have to pay them too. And usually 3D artists who make the render and make that design is also expensive. But the actual physical getting a mold made is like a couple $1,000s. But then you can use it over and
over again. Yeah,
and
not
the
surprised.
visual minis are like a couple cents.
Now, you know what actually prevents you from having to get a master made? Hero Forge, our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. So if you're, if the thought of getting a master mold made and paying thousands of dollars to get a sculptor, if that's a little scary to you and you just kind of want to maybe prototype but have something beautiful to look at, or maybe you're looking for something, hey, I broke this mini for a board game, or I'm designing my own board game and I just want it for home play and you want some beautiful minis, Hero Forge has your back. This holiday season, give the gift of a custom miniature or miniatures with Hero Forge. Between November 18th and November 28th, 2022, get $5 off a physical 3D printed miniature. That's basic, premium, and color plastic, so you don't even have to be good at painting. Here I am being this sucker with like all of these Games Workshop paints, all of my Warhammer. They do it in color. They even do it in bronze. But you get $5 off a 3D printed miniature by using coupon code LOOTDROP. The link will be in the show notes and the description on YouTube and on audio. Again, this is not combinable with other offers, but again, thank you, Hero Forge, for your support and very thematically placed sponsorship for this episode. Totally unintended. But yeah, like when I think about manufacturing, miniatures, surprisingly, I guess, are on the lowest end in terms of cost. What is the highest cost thing for manufacturing then? Because for me, it was like I thought minis would be the highest one.
It depends on how many games you're printing, right? So like if you print 1,000 copies of a game, right?
Right.
Each mini, and you have one mini in that game, and that mini's mold costs $3,000.
Oh, true.
Even if one mini only costs 2 cents to make, which it probably will be more. Even if it was like 0 cents to make, each mini still is $3 because the mold was $3,000. Right. So that's really the issue, which comes back to even with the insert mold, right? My insert mold, the mold cost was $300 alone, and if I only made 1,000 copies, then each mold effectively comes out to be $350 each. Not $350, 35 cents each.
Right.
And that's a lot. That's a lot at a low quality. And that's not even factoring the fact of each mold actually then costs another, I think, 50 cents. So the molds are pretty expensive. But that's the thing with these giant Kickstarters that raise, $5 million overnight. They're sending out 20,000 copies. So like the mold becomes very, very cheap.
Very, very cheap, right. The more people buy into the Kickstarter, the cheaper it becomes for them. So what you're saying is the most expensive thing is potentially the mold.
Yeah, the upfront costs are all usually the most expensive things for sure. Because
so like
one-time fees, right? And it's hard to properly. The more you print, the cheaper it gets. As far as components wise, certain things don't get that much cheaper with scale. Plastic components like acrylic, like gems, don't get that much cheaper with scale, which is why with these really big games, you often will not see those really like cheap feeling like little plastic gems, that you see in a lot of medium-sized board games that only have like 2,000, 5,000.
Like you're talking about like I have some on my desk, like these little plastic things. I've got these little plastic cubes.
Yeah, I have some. Manners Round Table.
Yeah, and I've got
little gems.
I've got these little pink gems too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So these do not get that much cheaper with scale. Like they will. There's like a floor to how cheap they can get, and each of these cost me 8 cents, and like that it's just not gonna get cheaper than that. I don't remember if it was actually 8 cents or not, but like.
Right, so it doesn't make sense to have that as a component if you're going to mass produce, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why board games that have like gems may use sort of punch outs.
Yeah. So when you go to like these really big, expensive games, like have you ever if a miniatures game that you get, I don't know, like the Dark Souls board game?
Oh yeah, the Dark Souls one.
They won't have these kind of components. despite having a ton of really gorgeous acrylic, plastic minis, they won't have these kind of acrylic components because they floor out at a pretty high price.
So
Components wise,
what about like instead of miniatures, acrylic standees?
that's another thing. Why acrylic standees is not very popular, and this might lead into React.
I do. I want to talk about React
Yeah.
because I'm thinking
We are
about the
using
components
acrylic
of your game.
standees.
You're using
Yeah.
that.
Acrylic standees, similar to these things, they have a floor. They don't get that much cheaper with scale. So like, I can make an acrylic standee like this. I
Yeah.
think these were actually $5, not $3. I was lying earlier. Because this is pretty big. It's triple layers. Even
Yeah.
if I made, like, say right now it's $5 to make one of these, and if I make 100, if I made 10,000 of these,
You're not really
the price
safe.
might drop. The price might drop down to $250.
Right.
Right? Because there's not a master mold. It's not like they're not molded. They have to be, no matter what, they have to be individually laser cut. Right.
Right. So the quantity isn't really going to change the
Right.
cost. I see. So like if you're going to do something like smaller batch, then like acrylic is totally fine.
Mhm.
But if you're going like mass market, it's why you're not seeing acrylic standee minis and you're seeing like maybe like resin minis or just like cheaper plastic stuff.
And I really like acrylic standees. I think they're gorgeous, especially with the anime aesthetic.
Well, you
I
get the
think minis
color
are-
and everything too.
Yeah, anime just doesn't translate into minis very well. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. And on top of that, for me, for React, one thing that's really great about minis is a lot of board games that have acrylics. The base will just be a very small circle. We have these larger bases because they're
Right.
practical. Because
They're
these
see-through.
characters, not just because just see through these characters. They're on a grid. You move them. They're dudes on a grid, just like a mini is. But in addition to being a mini on a grid, you can put tokens on them like this
Oh
on
yeah.
the base itself. So like you can apply a token, like a status token, to a standee,
And you can move
and
it
they can move
around.
them. Yeah.
That's
And
smart.
so unlike minis, which are purely aesthetic because they function the same as a meeple, these actually have a function. They actually are functional.
Unless you have a counter on them like HeroClix.
Yeah.
But then those are more expensive to manufacture. Okay, so like before we dive too deep into this, before we dive too deep on this, we're talking about React. The audience needs to know what is React. I've looked through a lot of the assets that you sent me. I'm just super hyped about it. I love the art. The audience needs to know what is React. It's this dueling
React
game.
Is called React, spelled RE semicolon ACT.
It's the most anime. It's the most anime title ever.
It is literally, the semicolon doesn't mean anything. It's just because it's anime. React, and then the subtitle is The Arts of War, because in this game you play as one of 8 different artists with magical superpowers, and in like classic anime fashion, they fight using these anime superpowers inspired by their art form. So you have, a calligrapher, our main cover character, who has a katana, and the katana sheath is a giant ink brush. And so she can ink her enemies with this giant ink brush, and then basically any calligraphy she writes is basically like spells. Like she can write down commands that forces people that has ink on them to do what she commands.
Cool.
We have character like the water dancer. He, very graceful. He glides around, and as he dances, he summons these giant flying beta fish, colorful flying fish that are also aggressive. So the theme is the arts of war because it's a bunch of artists who
Literally
fight with
artists.
crazy anime powers, and it's a play on the art of war. But yeah, it's a great. I think it's a great 1 versus 1 dueling game. It's inspired by old school Yu-Gi-Oh. So if you like Yu-Gi-Oh and you don't play it anymore because it got too crazy,
because all turn one wins.
Yeah. This is the game for you. This is
so this is very much like, because there are cards involved. You also have like a miniature. There's also a grid that you're fighting on. So
it's a tactical card dueler. That's what
it's
it is.
okay. So you're moving your character around, but you're also using cards and applying tokens and everything.
Yeah, so it's a hybrid between, I would say, Yu-Gi-Oh meets like Summoner Wars, where
Okay,
Summoner
cool.
Wars, the cards are the creatures on the board themselves, and you have some spell cards. Whereas this game, the creatures are more like the creatures in Magic. You summon them, and then the creatures themselves can be tapped every turn, and then the rest is just cards in your hand, like Yu-Gi-Oh.
And like doing attacks and things like
Yes,
that.
yes, and there's no. The reason why we say it's very Yu-Gi-Oh inspired is because there's no mana, there's no action limit.
Right.
Summoner Wars is a good example. You get to activate 3 units per turn, up to 3 units per turn, and every unit has a shared generic set of actions. Every unit, when you activate it, they move up to 2 spaces, and they can either melee attack or range attack. This game is not like that at all. Every single unit has their own set of abilities when you activate them. Some of them don't even move. Most of them don't actually even move. Some of them are literally like, we have a giant chocobo basically. That's just
awesome.
Like when you activate it, you can either spawn more chocobos or you can throw chocobos around. It's great.
That's super cool.
So in that way, it's more Yu-Gi-Oh-esque because you draw 1 card per turn, and then on your turn you can dump all your whole hand. Like turn 1, you can just dump your hand if you want to. That might be good, probably will be bad, and it's card advantage. It's in that old school TCG vein of, this game is about card advantage. This game is about knowing how and when to play your cards. The game doesn't have any guardrails, so that's the kind of game it is.
Are you aware of Flesh and Blood?
Oh man, I've heard of that game.
It's this new TCG that like is getting really, really popular. The local store that's near us is like a Flesh and Blood store, and it's very much like I think it's designed by like like Magic folks, and it's literally card dueling. Like you have your heroes and you put equipment on them and shit, and you're basically just like going back and forth. Seems really cool, but there's no minis involved. There's no minis involved. Like honestly, I don't know if this is like a bad thing. I'm like one of those people where when I look at a board game and I see beautiful art, I'm like, okay, you've already drawn me in. Art is like the first step. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a board, there's cards, there's other components. Okay, cool. Tactics, okay, I'm in. Minis, okay, I'm in even more. Oh, they're meeples, I'm out. Like I need I need to see the character represented in a way that is detailed to me, whether it be like an acrylic standee like yours, where I can see the art. And honestly, the point you make about the representation of anime characters in 3D makes a lot of sense, especially on like a really small scale.
The flat art looks so much better, and these are chunky. They're like very, very large. Yeah, the grid is only 5x6, so each zone is a 3.5 inch zone. So
yeah, like I get it. If you were like to go on a smaller scale, I was like, would you have to go in that sort of like chibi style, like sort of like aesthetic to actually like make it?
Yeah, we specifically went this route because the acrylic standees, I think, is the ideal way to play it. But the base game, the acrylic standees is the deluxification, right? So the base game, you just play with cards, and the cards go onto the zones themselves. And
so the standees aren't on like the full. That's on the deluxe version.
Yes. The base game, there's no way we could fit 28 unique acrylic standees into the base game at $60.
That makes sense.
It would just be too expensive. I think a good comparison. I think Japanime Games has a couple of games that they sell acrylic standees for. I think
like third party, like acrylic standees.
No, Japanime Games offers it.
See, the board game world is not something I am like super familiar with. Like I'm very casual when it comes to board games. So one thing I wanted to ask about React, because I know you've done this in the past, and I know you've done cultural consulting, actually. I actually found this Reddit post that you made about cultural consultants, and it was really. I was reading it, and it was very flattering because you were like, "Oh, hi, this is me. I go by Brother Ming Games. I've done panels with Seung-Foong Lim and Daniel Kwan." I was like, I don't even belong here, right?
Oh my god, I was using you to give myself more clout. Please.
More clout. Well, that's how we lift up each other, right? But like when you talk about like the arts, are these characters based on like traditional Asian arts? Like, is it just Chinese? Are you like?
Oh, it's
doing different cultures.
Very, very loose definition of art.
Very loose.
Very
so, like,
anime.
Ink brush.
Very anime.
Like calligraphy. Like
well,
music.
So the main character is pretty personal to me. The main character, the calligrapher, because my grandfather's
in the art, right?
Yeah. I actually, we just did a trailer the trailer finally released, and my grandfather is in the trailer as the main character's grandfather, because my grandfather was a calligrapher. He did it every day. He was very, very good. He was like our neighborhood calligrapher. He
That's
wrote
cool.
like birthday, wedding calligraphy for the neighborhood people. And he passed away. Rest in peace, grandpa. So like his calligraphy, like we actually took pictures and scanned it, and like all the background calligraphy that's in the trailer is
That's
his.
cool.
And so that the calligrapher character is deeply rooted in Chinese calligraphy. Her actual attacks, those cards are written. The calligraphy is written by Chris Lin, the game's lead designer's mom, who is a calligraphy
cool.
teacher. She teaches calligraphy on the side, or I think it's not her full time. I don't think it's her full time.
You got a family connection though for some of that
Yeah.
art.
I don't want to misspeak. Maybe it is her full time job. She's very good. And so she actually did the calligraphy for that character, and the cards, the 3 cards that she has, are actually written in different eras of calligraphy in the style of those 3 eras, and the effects reflect that. So like her character is very, very
that's deep.
a little deep. The other characters, they're a little bit zany. Like we have the animator. He is a JoJo's inspired character.
Awesome. Cool.
He's an animator. He has a sketchbook. And he has this basically projector that he can lay on the ground, and it summons his animation rig dolls. So he summons
That's cool.
He summons a 12 FPS Chan, a 24 FPS Kun, and then his ultimate ability when he finishes his masterpiece, when he gets his finisher, is he summons 60 FPS Sama.
Oh my god!
And he is a action programming character,
Oh
so
my God.
he doesn't even have a deck of cards. He actually, on his turn, he can put down animation frames on the board, and then once per turn, he can animate the board. And when he animates the board, based on what animation frame he's put on a zone, that animation triggers for an adjacent standee of his. So, for example, if he puts running animation on a zone, and he animates that running animation frame,
Right.
then his 12 FPS Chan will be able to run into that zone.
That's so
Similarly,
funny.
if he puts down a punching animation frame, and he can animate that punching frame, and then he can have his 24 FPS Chan punch that zone. So all the characters are very zany. They play very differently. It's very anime.
That's
if you
awesome.
if you watch some like these anime fighting games,
Like Guilty Gear.
yeah, there's they fight with yo-yos. There's
Yeah.
always an android. Recently, there was a fighting game that has a VTuber fighter in it.
Oh my god.
And one of her specials is like the screen turns into a VTubing overlay, and she starts streaming and talking,
Oh.
and like that attacks. It's like anime fighting games is out there.
Like
Like,
a whole other. Okay, cool. So like, so it's very much not. It's very not. It's very loosely culturally coded, which is cool.
We have some
Because
very cool stuff.
when you think
the
about, like,
dancer
art-
is a water dancer, for example.
Oh, that's neat. What do you think of like when you said like, oh, they use art in dueling? I was like, oh, like in the like Data from the Akatsuki in Naruto. Like you make your little clay things.
We have a clay
that's
sculptor
great.
who's inspired by kaiju.
Oh, cool.
The
You, like,
idea that
make
he
them?
sculpts things, yeah, and his thing, we had to scale it back down. Originally, he was actually gonna sculpt kaiju, very much so inspired by SSS Gridman.
Oh yeah.
The villain in that show just sculpts kaiju and then turns to life. But we scaled back the design to make him a little bit easier. Now he just sculpts these little clay dolls that he calls buddies.
Yeah.
But just like in Naruto, really
Just
the
like in
buddies are just claymores. They're just bombs.
Oh, that's
He sets
awesome.
them forth and
That's
they
super
explode.
cool.
So they're all artists. Thematically, it's very anime. It's very loose with the idea of what is an artist.
That's awesome because like the last question I wanted to ask you was, when we talk about like RPG design and we talk about like, representing cultures, even like fantastically in RPG design, we always talk about like cultural consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a commonplace thing in the board game world? I actually just worked on my
Oh.
first board game as like a cultural consultant, and it was something that I never thought that I would do. But you see so many very explicitly culturally coded games.
that
is-
usually have very little representation? of
Very
the
little.
culture.
But
like the Great Wall just came out recently, and if you look at the credits list, there's not a single Chinese person on that team.
The Great
Uh,
Wall.
Yeah, it's a board game where it's the meeples are terracotta army, and I'm just like, God damn.
Oh, God, good God.
Yeah, Great.
I'm
Wait,
look,
no, no,
I'm
no.
look,
I'm thinking no. The Great Wall is actually a different board
the
game.
Great Wall's got like, oh,
That's a different
I
one.
gotta, I'm not gonna lie though, the setup of the game looks dope.
The art looks great. Not gonna lie,
Like you
but
build like a fortress and shit.
you can go to the It's Awakened Realms. Wait, no. What's the one that I'm thinking of?
Oh, this actually looks kind of cool. Oh damn,
It looks good, right?
it looks good.
Actually, the Great Wall was pretty good because they actually ended up not having They had a meeple option, which I was like in favor of. I was like, nice. I know you don't like meeples, but I'm just like any board game that just decides not to only do minis. Okay, yeah, there's a board game that recently came out called Terracotta Army. It came out this year. That's the one where like if you go to the credits list and it's just like
it's like all white people.
Yeah. And there is a cultural consultant, I think. I'm not sure.
So it's not really a commonplace practice in board
No,
games.
it's it's become pretty common, but mostly they're just
What company
they're
made
just
these?
there as it's like a gesture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's mostly there as a symbolic gesture. Like I think very recently, what is that one about the psychology Kickstarter? It's just launched. I can go to Kickstarter right now. Called Unconscious Mind. And it's about Freudian psychology.
Interesting.
And it's basically about it's the main character of this game is Freud, Sigmund Freud.
Oh, I'm on Board Game Geek looking at Terracotta Army, and there's a product photo. It's got a little icon of a worker, and the way they did the art, the way they tried, oh, this is so bad. When the way they tried to represent Asian eyes and like facial hair, they just made him look like a Guy Fawkes mask. They just made it look like a Guy Fawkes mask.
My most egregious one that pissed me off back in the day was that panda one from CMON, where like it was about Chinese pandas fighting off ninja monkeys. And
no,
the general pandas were samurai, and I was like, "What the
Wait,
fuck
it's
is going
called
on?"
it's called Way of the Panda.
Oh yeah, that's a.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Because this is the thing. Like I when I'm thinking about board games, it's like it's either going to be deeply reflective of like a culture, or the culture will be very much used as like an aesthetic, like a cheap aesthetic to sell something.
Exactly.
And so going into this, I was like, I was like, I really wanted to know about like the use of cultural consultants in board games, which I guess is
not great.
Not great. Which I guess is not great.
Yeah, Way of the Panda was a really interesting story. I actually complained about it. Like, I was like, why is there literally a samurai helmet on the action points board? Like, this is obviously, clearly, you're trying to be like, these are Chinese pandas fighting off Japanese monkey ninjas, which is weird in itself. But like,
no hate on Kung Fu Panda. No hate on Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, but and then the game's designer actually reached out to me and was like, when I saw this design, this was not the theme. The theme was about families traveling through Poland, and the publisher changed the design to be about,
well, because I guess the aesthetic they bought the mechanics and then just changed the aesthetic.
Right.
And I guess that's another pitfall in selling a board game to a publisher too, right?
Yes, I would agree. I mean, I sold a board game to a publisher and it hasn't come out, but I got paid, so I'm not gonna complain too much.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I will say board game cultural consultancy is not very mature. It very much so feels like, okay, we've slapped somebody onto the box so that you know if we get in trouble, there's somebody we can throw under the bus. It's not our fault.
Right.
Synthon Lim does a couple of these, and it's just like sometimes like he gives the feedback, and they're just like, cool, and then they don't do anything about it. I'm just like, what's even the point?
That's the thing with cultural consultants, right? Like people use them as like a stamp of approval.
Yeah,
I've told this story before on the podcast, but I've had people approach and asked if like Asians Represent has like a sticker that's like an Asians Represent approved sticker to put on their product. Like I was like, I could sell out right now and just be making bank.
Oh man, that's you could.
I could sell out and be like the number one most hated Asian in tabletop.
I actually did
no
one consultancy work. I've stopped doing cultural consultancy because like this was the job that actually made me hate it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It was for a painting game where the characters you were playing at Chinese artists classical from some random like non-specific old Chinese era, and I provided very, very detailed feedback with went through the rule book, how things are. Yeah, Rising Sun.
Yeah, Rising Sun was another one that, because that came out after Blood Rage, and Blood Rage is, in my opinion, really good. Then Rising Sun is like, oh, of all the names.
But yeah, their cover art had the Chinese artist painting on an easel, standing up, and the whole theme is traditional Chinese painting. And I was just like, this is the easiest thing you can change. Redo the cover art, have them sitting down, drawing on a table. It makes no sense that they're painting on an easel.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Like, it's just not like it would be vertical. Like they would be looking down, but they're like, we already did our box art, and they just refused to change it. And I was like, I requested to have them not have my name on the credits. I was like,
I've done that. I've done that once on an RPG project where I asked to not be credited at all. Another one, I asked to be credited differently and not as a cultural consultant.
Yeah, because like I mean, like if you're not gonna change it, then what's even the point? Like I don't want to get in trouble. Like I'm not gonna be here just to be a stamp of approval, right? That's
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that's why I'm excited to see you thriving in board games, because
there's a recently with Steam Up, I'm very excited for Steam Up. The fact that game did so successfully makes me so huge. Happy. Yeah, I think we're finally, there's not a lot of us. My team is all Asian minus the game's developer, who is one of my best friends. He's like my honorary Asian.
Yeah, I get it.
He was my best man. I was his best man at our respective weddings. Eric Zerain, shout out, best developer in the game. He's super really knowledgeable about games. And then our graphic designer is Hispanic. Artist, designer, myself, we're all Asian. And it's just like it's I think we're the only Asians making anime board games in the West.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it's a cool thing to say, but also like a really sad thing.
Weird thing, right?
But also a really sad thing, because that means every other anime board game is just all made by white people.
I mean, they're either localizations of board games that already exist in Japan, or like, for example, the IP games. Like the Death Note IP game was designed by a white couple. The Cowboy Bebop one right now is live on Kickstarter. You can.
Oh, really? I didn't know there was a.
There's a Cowboy Bebop RPG on Kickstarter right now.
Oh yes, I know about the RPG.
And if you scroll down, and the two guys designing it, they're very happily posing and being like, how long we've worked on it. It's just two white guys.
Yeah, I remember.
And I'm like, it would be nice if. Oh wait, what happened to their picture? I guess they took it down.
They took it down.
It was them
GM screen.
It was them standing in front of the Cowboy Bebop backdrop.
That's a whole other thing, like licensed IP. Like that adds to the cost of your game. Like I can't imagine how much it would cost to make a Cowboy Bebop game.
And no shade to them. I'm just
no shade at all.
There's just not a lot. It's just not all Asians in the industry.
Oh, they have Grant Howitt working on like a test scenario. That's neat.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. It's nice to be. It's weird to be the only Asian guy with an anime board game.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. It's like showing up to like with like an Asian food truck at an Asian food truck meetup, and you're the only Asian chef.
It's a little weird.
And then everybody's putting like pineapple in their congee, like that one company. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Cowboy Bebop in particular has been very co-opted by American culture, I think, too.
I think because of the music.
It's great. I love Cowboy Bebop, and I understand why it's been co-opted.
That one makes sense.
But it's just like, I mean, it's not cultural, right? It's just like, oh man, where's the Japanese people? Where's the Asians? Like,
it's like ScarJo and Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, at least in that one, they address it pretty blatantly. Like before she turned into the major, she was Asian. I watched it. Oh my god!
Yeah, but it still fucking sucks. It still fucking sucks, right?
And ironically, it's actually one of the best anime live action adaptations. I hate admitting it.
No,
did you watch it?
Of course.
It's so good.
Which the part that
It's so good.
you know what scene really got me when first of all the casting of the other characters
Oh,
are like is
amazing.
really well done.
They're really
The
good. Really
scene when the major is ripping up the hatch on the mech and her arms rip
Oh,
off
yeah, yeah.
is like so well done.
So many of the
Or
scenes
the
in
opening scene, the iconic scene where
yeah,
she has the
they did it
camo
like
cloak.
shot by shot identical to the
It's
original movie.
really
It's
well
great.
done.
It's like I actually think it might be the best live action anime
And like
adaptation
like
ever.
the geishas, like the mecha
Yeah.
geishas, it
Oh, when they
like
pop out.
they pop out is
Oh
so
my
well done because I
god.
think they had Weta Workshop doing it, and they're legendary.
Oh,
They also
I don't
got
know. I don't
they
know.
also
I just
got into the
remember being
board.
like, "This is
Well,
amazing."
they also got into the board game space too. They made the Giant Killer
Yeah.
Robots board game.
Oh, but
They
yeah,
have
it's
like a
just
publishing division.
and ScarJo did actually a really good job. She's a pretty good actor, all things aside. But like, I was like, damn, really?
You could
Couldn't we not have done ScarJo?
see
It's just
that's why I thought like Pacific Rim was really good because they had like
mhm, mhm.
they had a whole variety of actors there, and they
Yeah.
had like an Asian lead too, which was super awesome. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, it's funny to hear that like I think we're the only Asian people making anime board games in the West. But I think that also means that like you're doing a good thing, right? You are showing people that, hey, I can go and make an anime sort of themed board game, have it succeed, and inspire a whole other generation of Asian creators,
yeah,
right?
hopefully,
Because
hopefully,
like
yeah.
my goal, my hope with this episode, and like I certainly learned a lot. Like I have no idea how to approach designing a board game. I think if I were to do it, I think I would base it around cards.
That's
Um,
the easiest way and
it's the
cheapest way to
it's
start
the
for sure.
easiest way, but I like beautiful art. But now I know like a couple of things like going into board game design. Like I know I have to think about components. I know I have to find a manufacturer, and I know the components that I want in my game are going to impact, ultimately how many manufacturers I have to
Yeah.
speak to and coordinate with. I have to
Well,
think
you'll
about
speak to just
packaging.
one, but they'll
Well,
they'll
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 coordinate, and
outsource it.
that
Yeah.
will add to your costs, though,
Yes.
that you have to
Yes.
think about. And then I have to think about like how I want things to be packaged. Like I have to think about the size of the box, and
If you
then the
want to be a
size
good
of
publisher, at least.
if you want to be a good publisher, right? The size of the box is going
Mhm.
to impact, A, how people can store it, right? B, the size of your components, the size of the board, and everything like that is these are things that, like, oh, I'll think about cool mechanics first. And you get people who will iterate and have a really complex shit going on. And then they're going to eventually hit a point where, like, okay, well, it's going to cost me so much money to make this. I have to go all the way back to the beginning. And I think more so than in tabletop RPGs, designing a board game, you very much have to start thinking about your like end costs at the same time you're thinking about mechanics and everything like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of designers learn that pretty quickly as soon as they start pitching to publishers, because the
Yeah.
publisher will mention it to them as like, "Hey, this game is really like this is a very simple game. It's a very light game, and you're using very expensive components, and that's not going to be a good fit." And that's something that they'll learn pretty early on.
So I got to
Uh,
ask, because I think this is where most people are going to have their questions. When you're looking for a manufacturer, if you want to make acrylic standees, if you want to make like charms, stickers, if
mhm.
you want to make like small print board games or card games or things like that, where do you go to like find these? You mentioned Alibaba. Do you just go on
Alibaba is
Ali?
definitely a good start. For board games, there's a couple of established ones out there that's like that everybody knows. And even if you go to like a convention like PAX Unplugged, there'll be a bunch of publishers there. They'll have booths because they want to make connections as well.
Yeah, I
Panda
remember.
Panda's really big, but they're really expensive, so
I
I tend to stray away from them.
I remember
Um,
them at my first PAX Unplugged, where we met,
hmm.
because they were handing out samples.
They're like the Juno of board game manufacturers.
Yeah, they
They're
were like
like
handing
they
out
have a really
samples.
good they have a really big American presence, and they'll hold
Yeah,
your hand through everything. Have great customer service, but they're really expensive because of all that.
you get what you
Because they
pay
have a
for.
large American presence, they have to pay for their American staff. Long Pack is another big one. Gameland is another big one. But board game manufacturing, even outside of that, there's a bunch of small ones now that are listed on Alibaba as well. And you just have to, yeah, just have to explore. Just most of these companies will be willing to give you sample kits. Worst comes to worst, they'll ask you to pay for shipping, but they'll
Yeah,
send you a bunch of sample prototypes. Sometimes it'll be free
and I
if you're
guess
like if you like they know you're like actually an established
serious.
publisher and like you might make them money, they'll give you free samples. Not like of your game. Off the
No,
bat, they'll just
of like sample
materials.
product. Yeah.
Yeah, but Alibaba is definitely the place to go. It's basically a listing directory for manufacturers in China, and it's very robust and it's very mature at this point.
And I guess have the added benefit of speaking Chinese and having.
Yeah, if you speak Chinese, it makes things a lot easier. So I definitely have this weird edge that like I'm close to all my manufacturing, like because once we start, because I like you can talk to them via Alibaba, but we usually move our conversations off onto WeChat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I can just speak Chinese, we'll send each other.
Yo, WeChat is
Chinese like, meme culture is like a totally different game.
WeChat is like so ahead of the curve, even just when it comes to emojis. Like WeChat
emojis are so much better,
so next level.
Love
like, so next level. Like I would like my partner and I use WeChat a lot when I was like living in China, and like it's how I would communicate with people. And my partner and I got really accustomed to the stickers in WeChat. Right, because they're so much better. But like, come back to North America, nobody else uses it, and we literally were for like a good 2 years just using WeChat just for stickers, just because they were so good.
Facebook tried really hard to capture that feeling with Facebook Messenger because they know they have a big Chinese audience, but nobody in the West actually uses the Facebook stickers. So I'm like,
no. Bad. It's just WeChat is just so much better. And then I see, obviously, like there's Agatha in the chat talking about Line, but I know like Line.
Line's really, I think,
Line's big in Japan
and Korea. Yeah, Japan and Korea. I've never used it personally.
Because I know you can like get somebody in your contacts by scanning phones. I see that in anime a lot. I totally just watched Wotakoi, like watched it like 5 times.
Oh yeah.
Reread the entire series.
I wanna give a shout out going back earlier. I was saying,
do it.
We're the only Asians making anime board games. I will shout out to Nick Yu. He's the designer for
D&D
Adventure
Onslaught.
Tactics. Yeah, it's been great. Adventure Tactics is not anime per se, but it's kind of anime adjacent.
I remember when Nick was showing off like Adventure Tactics early at Breakout Con.
Oh yeah, that game is great. He's like Nick is cool. Like his like magnus opus. It's such a cool game.
I want to have Nick on the show in 2023 to talk about Onslaught.
Nice,
because it's like Asians
doing places. I'm so excited
doing D&D stuff. I think is super cool. And honestly, Onslaught to me is like, it's the 3rd edition D&D miniatures game brought back to life, and I'm here for it because I fucking love that game. But that said, we're not here to talk about D&D Onslaught. We are here to sing Nick Yu's praises, though, because Nick is a great human being, first of all.
And the other shout-out is Marco at Level 99 Games. Level 99 Games, they also make anime games. They're actually the company that got me into board gaming. But obviously, Brad is very white. He's great. Brad is great. I like him with person. Hilarious guy. He wears cowboy hats, so that's how white he is.
Oh, wow.
But he has an employee.
I've seen Level 99 because I remember going to Gen Con and seeing Sakura Arms.
Oh, yeah. They ported that. Level 99 Games is great. I love their stuff. They're pretty much my favorite board game company because I love their board games. I got some gripes about their lack of inserts, though. Brad, stop being goddamn cheap on those non-inserts. Anyways,
so they do imports for Asian games too.
Then they do a couple of imports, but they start off with original games, and their original games were anime themed. Like Bullet, very very anime. BattleCon, pretty anime. Exceed, very anime. But Brad, again, he wears cowboy hats. He's great, but he's not Asian. But he has an employee, Marco, Filipino, super fun guy, big anime weeb. He started working for Level 90 Games several years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
He ended up being the lead project for one of the BattleCon expansions. So
that's awesome.
He's working on anime games as well.
There's an anime game that I wanted to kickstart, but I wasn't sure if I would ever get to play it. Because you can't find people to play a game with, and that's the challenge. This is one that was just like the aesthetic, the fact that it was a card game.
BattleCon's great. I love BattleCon. It's the board game that got me into board games, BattleCon.
This one it's called Gun and Gun.
Gun and Gun's great. Lion Wing Publishing, great guy. I don't know if the owner is Asian. I don't think so. His name is like
Robert. It looks
Bradley.
So cool. Bradley. It looks so cool. And
Gun and Gun's great. I just got mine.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I already got it. Yeah. I any game that has anime on Kickstarter, I will back it.
I didn't buy it. because I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm ever gonna play it. Is it like,
Mhm.
am I gonna get the
It's
chance
pretty good.
to?"
It's pretty good.
But
It's a solid card order. So Lion Wing, they localize. So all the games from Lion Wing are localizations from
yeah,
Japanese designers that succeeded in Japan, and then he localized them into.
then they localize them. I feel like people should be doing that for TTRPGs because there's a lot
You
of
know,
stuff in Asia.
he's doing
Like,
that now. Yeah, his current Kickstarter is
yeah,
localizing a.
Convictor Drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
because Japanese or TTRPGs, because we've talked about that a lot on the podcast, are structured very differently in
yeah,
like how they're written. I think
it's a
the
very huge culture over there. It's
yeah,
crazy.
but like the most, if anybody in the audience is ever interested in seeing the difference between a Japanese TTRPG and like a Western one, look up Shinobigami. It's like a ninja
Mm.
one. It's like a ninja school one, and it's really cool. But the way the book is written is really different. Like the first third of the book is actually an actual play. It's a transcript of an actual play
Oh,
to teach you how to
interesting.
play.
Interesting.
And but that, apparently that's like a thing in Japan. And
I
that's
didn't
how
know that. That's
people
really cool.
consume content. Um,
I just
but
know
yeah,
that they're not published in the same way because for the main difference that I noticed off the bat, and I think anybody would notice, is that they're actually just books.
yeah,
They're not
they're
like
just books.
hardcover, 11-inch like these like D&D style like tabletop RPG books. They're just regular like paperback books.
I could buy
and,
Gun and Gun right
and
now,
you should buy Gun and Gun. It's a good game.
or
Support
I
Lion Wing.
could,
Lion Wing's great.
or I could pre-order Genshin Taro,
Oh yes,
which
you
I
should
will
also do that. You
probably
should do
do.
both.
Which I will probably do. But that said, we're running out of time. One
Yes.
thing we should do is thank our amazing patrons, the supporters of this show. We have a lot of folks who make sure that Asians Represent continues to grow, make sure that Asians Represent continues to sort of uplift Asian creators. And so there are a lot of folks that we have to thank.
Thank you.
Some of them also like publishers. Like shout out to our guardians like Brooke, Jeremy, Daisy, Arjun, Justin, Matt, Jay, and Amanda. And then our most honorable patron, the most honorable Metalweave Games publisher, awesome people. The most honorable Valorous Games, the only Asians I know making anime TTRPGs in the West. Shout out to Valorous Games and Valor, the heroic role playing system. Dungeon Glitch / Matt, super honorable. I'm curious to see where you will go, Matt, with this whole Twitter thing, or if you'll stay on Twitter. And the most honorable Types 2 Epic Impulse, you're awesome, and Bob C. Thank you, folks, for your support. Really appreciate it. And then, like Brother Ming, thank you for coming back, returning to Asians Represent. We didn't talk about the magical girl genre. Instead, we talked about Genshin Impact, which I guess we talked about gacha. And I realized that this is the first time I publicly talked about how deeply addicted I was to Princess Connect.
That's
And
a pretty deep gotcha anime game. That's
it
not,
is.
that's not like a surface level.
There's not that's not like
It's not a casual
it's not.
gotcha
I'm not a
game.
casual gacha addict. I was like,
Yeah.
like it's bad. Like phone stand on the desk so I could play Princess Connect. Like deeply addicted to Princess Connect, and I just replaced it with Genshin Impact. But I feel better about replacing it with Genshin Impact because that means that I can buy Genshin Taro and not feel like,
There you go.
oh, I'm a fake Genshin fan. No, I'm a hardcore Genshin fan because
Genshin also
I'm
has
buying.
the best fan merch. There's once
So
you
good.
once you get into Genshin fan merch, it is a rabbit. You can go to Kickstarter right now and search Genshin
Genshin.
Impact, and there's a ton of Genshin fan projects.
Just go on Etsy too. Like I've got all these posters that I need to replace. I'm like, do I just get Genshin stuff? But then like
Yes.
our place is just gonna be full of Genshin shit, and my partner's gonna be like, what the fuck?
Look,
Like
if you go on Kickstarter right now and search Genshin Impact, top 3 hits. There's a Genshin Impact enamel pin collection. There's a Genshin Impact cross Eevee Pokemon dress up collection. There's Genshin Impact
Okay.
vests. There's a Genshin Impact jacket and cardigans Kickstarter. There
Oh
are
my God.
so many Genshin Impact projects on
Genshin
Kickstarter.
Impact knitted vests, shirts,
Yeah.
and bucket hats.
Like I said, no other company is as pro fan merch as MiHoYo. They are actively excited that fans make fan merch.
It's a smart strategy rather
It
than
is
just
so
like
smart. That's why Genshin rules the world right now in terms of mobile games.
I mean,
It's
if you look at something else, like the opposite would be like Games Workshop, right? Games Workshop, they just
just
like
very
they they,
litigious.
they yes, very, but then internally they take that shotgun approach to licensing, and they'll just license Warhammer shit for anything, and it's just like terrible Warhammer games, great
Yeah.
Warhammer games. There's just no consistent quality in their licensed products.
Let the
Uh,
fans take care of it. The people who love your license the most will make the best work. You know.
I can't do enamel pins because I don't know where to put them, but
I
I
have
do know
bags
what
upon bags of
but I do
pins.
know what I do with a Genshin Impact cardigan.
There you go.
um,
Yeah, this is a rabbit hole that
that's
you're
a
gonna
rabbit hole
dive
that I'm gonna
deep
go
deep
down
in.
later. But that said, React is coming out on Kickstarter soon. I think
Yes.
if people are watching this video on the React Kickstarter page, obviously you've already backed it, and React is a huge success. I'm super excited for you because this
Thank you,
is,
thank you.
this is like, you know, fan games are like no joke. Those are true games. Those are true games. But doing something completely new is really awesome. And I look forward to like seeing React absolutely crush it and then seeing you eventually expand on React and do more.
Fingers
'Cause
crossed.
that's the
Same
goal,
here.
right? That's the
Yeah,
goal.
no, I want this to be the reason I finally get to quit my job and go full time, you know? So
Heck yeah.
fingers crossed that we are a huge success, even though we're 1 week after the Elden Ring Kickstarter. So
Yeah, but people who actually want good gameplay are gonna go to React,
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it,
right? So
baby. If
I'm
you
super
like
hyped for you.
you like card battlers, you like tactics games, if you played Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic in the past and and high school, but you don't want to deal with how expensive and ridiculous it is now, this is the game for you.
You're really aging us. You're
Yeah,
really aging us.
that's how it is. Our team is me, Eric, Chris. We're all competitive TCG players. Chris plays competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm Masters and Runeterra now, but like we just want something simple and fast, and that is actually deep, and that
Yeah,
is that is React.
you
You're
took
gonna
like the
love it.
Full Metal Alchemist approach to Runeterra. You sacrifice a part of your wrist
Yeah.
just to make it there. I mean, like, look, I can't. I literally can't joke about that because I'm like, I've got like a stainless steel cart next to my desk with all of my Magic the Gathering stuff. I literally played Magic for like 4 hours yesterday.
Oh
Um,
man.
so like, I get it. I'm honestly super hyped for your success. 'Cause I'm saying success because I know it's gonna thrive.
Oh, I hope so.
I'm really hyped that you agreed to do this interview. You shared your knowledge because I, for one, am probably gonna DM you a whole bunch of stuff afterwards because I want to know.
Let's do it. I want to see Asians represent stickers. I'm gonna get one of those stickers and put it on my game.
I want
Asian approved.
Asian approved.
Definitely not racist.
Totally not racist. An Asian looked at this and said,
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah.
damn. Oh, you'd be so fun. No, I feel like that's just a mistake. Where my thought in my head was like, you know what? If it would be hilarious if I went around a con and I made a small batch of Asian approved stickers and just started shopping and be like, huh, I just kept going. Oh, I feel like that could go really wrong, but also
yeah.
like really hilariously viral.
I'm sure some publishers would take it seriously. If you put it on them, they'd like share on social media, like, "Look, guys, we did it."
Asian approved.
Yeah.
Who gave
See,
you
I
the
told you
sticker?
we have an Asian friend.
That's me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super hyped that you came on, shared your knowledge.
Thank
Designing
you.
a
Thank you
board
for having
game
me,
is
man.
still scary to me.
You
But
guys are like the pillar of the Asian community and
oh,
tabletop.
don't
you
even,
know.
don't even. I just, I hope
100%. 100%.
we need more people doing stuff like this. We need more people sharing their knowledge so that other Asians can go and make their passion projects, can go and make their board game, quit their day job and do this full time, right? We need more people like, and look, there are other shows that do board game stuff. Like shout out to like Senfung, like Meeple Syrup
Yeah,
Talk
I'm
Shop.
gonna be on Maple Syrup as well. Let's
Oh,
do it.
that's like in my mind, Asians represent as like TTRPGs, Asians, Meeple Syrup, Asians, and white people, board games. But like Senfung is like he's
He's designed so many games.
he's designed so many games. He is
The
like
goat.
goals that he is so
Yeah.
smart. I'm working on a project with him right now, and I'm just like I don't feel like I belong. Senfung is so cool. But anyways, Brother Ming, thank you so much for coming on to this episode of Asians Represent. I'm
course.
hyped you've returned. Let's not wait 3 years for the next reappearance. Let's
Oh
do this
yeah.
again in the future.
I need to come back and just talk about anime for an hour.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know what? I'll say it now. I can.
Ah!
We're gonna do it next episode, but I think I've alluded to it in a couple episodes. But we're actually coming up with a full-on just anime show on Asian.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna do a monthly anime show.
Yo, so the best way to do an anime podcast is to only talk about anime for your first 3 episodes and then never talk about anime again.
Yeah, so the first episode is going to be really controversial, and it's going to be like, you want a Chainsaw Man? Kind of meh. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I love Chainsaw Man.
The manga's great, but you know what? I'm not gonna. The anime, the 3D animation stands out a little bit too much for my taste.
So I
It's
got
very controversial.
I only recently stopped getting hate on TikTok because I put out like just 30 seconds, and I was like, yeah, I just finished reading Chainsaw Man, and I literally just said, if you're curious about Chainsaw Man, don't read the manga if you're hyped because you watched the trailers. And then people fucking attack me relentlessly on
The
that
manga's
platform.
really good.
The manga is
really
really good, but the
it's-
action is so poorly composed in the manga.
Really, I think the manga is a masterclass. It is actually
not
one of the
for
best.
action, not for action in my mind.
Like
I think
it's different. It has
it's
a bunch
got-
of still frames.
still frames. It's like set pieces. There are
Mhm,
like
mhm.
moments, but like the moment to moment action is so poorly done, especially in spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1 when Denji is fighting Makima in their like final fight. That those like 2 panels are so poorly drawn.
It's so much more about the surrealism and
but that's not like but that's not
of
the
fight.
but that's not the weirdness of the fight is communicated beyond like the movement. For me, it's the movement. When I look at like really well done action in a manga that is like easy to really follow and is dynamic and interesting, I'm like Spy Family. The action in Spy Family is illustrated so well. Or my favorite, Trigun.
I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you
Okay,
because
well-
I get where you're coming from.
Maybe we should settle this.
Yeah,
next
bring
year
me
when
on for
we-
the anime episode.
When we
I
launch
will-
the anime
I will
episode
talk.
or another podcast that we also have, we'll settle this because I think this is something that needs to be done. But that said, we
Yeah,
are at
you're
time.
Definitely running.
I know
over.
we could just keep going. I know we could just keep going. I'm going to put all of your socials, all the links to all of your stuff in the show notes. It'll be on the YouTube video description. It'll be on the audio show notes. We're going to have show notes. If you are interested in learning more about board games and you want all of this in like written format, got to be a patron. We're going to have show notes there with all of these tips on picking manufacturers, all the hidden costs that I certainly didn't think about, like packaging and like getting a master for a mini and all that stuff. Make sure you check that out on our Patreon. And of course, follow Brother Ming. Back,
Yes.
react, but semicolon act in the most anime way possible.
Yeah.
And also like
that's how we stand out.
pre-order Genshin Tarot because we just found out that it's going to be shipping in March of next year.
Yes,
You
I'm
said?
very confident we'll ship by March.
March of next year. And honestly, for what you're getting and what it is, that's a really reasonable price in my mind.
It's a lot of art.
It's a lot of art.
art.
$100 for what you described is like, I'd pay more for that. Like, you also put a lot of the art on the website already. Like, people can look
Yes.
at the cards, which I think is really cool. I'm hyped for it, especially with how you describe the combat. It's not what I was expecting, and it's exactly what I want. But that said, I will put all of that in the show notes. Brother Ming, thank you for joining me for episode 64 of Asians Represent. There's more, but I fucked up numbering. This is like well over episode 100.
Yeah, it's a new season.
New
Season
season.
three.
Yeah.
64,
That said,
season 3.
this is the second last episode of season 3. We will see you on December 4th, I believe, for the finale and some big announcements. But we'll see you folks then. Take care and back react. Bye everyone.
Thank you.